This presentation is on affordable housing. I wanted to ask the question, are affordable housing units actually affordable, and what dictates this? And so to start, I used a data set that had around 64,000 units, all of these affordable housing scattered throughout the US, and I decided to measure, is each unit affordable, which is determined by rent that is equal to or less than income. So I started by studying which factors make affordable housing actually affordable, and so I used the factors provided in that data set to create policy recommendations and also to think about how we are measuring the success of affordable housing units. The factors that were involved were location, urban, type of unit, rented or owned, number of bedrooms, age of building, utility costs, etc. In fact, here is all the factors that were originally in my model. You can see here there's total salary, there's number of rooms, fair market rent, city versus suburban status. So I conducted a series of models to determine which factors determine if a unit is affordable or not. The results are the following variables, which were previously defined over here, so I'll go ahead and just speed through that. Zinc 2 is total income. FMR is free market rent. Value is the basic value of the unit as a whole. Number of units just means the number of units included in, for example, an apartment building. Sometimes this can be one if it's just a house. Per is the number of people living there, and then owner rent is just a variable that basically delineates whether or not a unit is owned or rented. And these factors are very important in explaining if a unit is affordable. So here's a quick graph that I pulled from my model, so you can just see those laid out. You can see the most important is that big blue bar, which is basically the income of the unit. So everybody who lives there and what their combined income is. Also important is FMR, which is free market rent. So this makes sense. We can see that the price of the unit and the income are huge factors in determining whether or not it's affordable. And so it's these other ones that are a little bit more exciting to look into. Own rent, so whether or not it's owned, per, number of people living there, number of units, number of basically units in the apartment complex or house. If it's a house, again, it's just delineated as one. The value of the complex, and that's that. So income, this is the most important, which is why I started with it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Household income is a big predictor of whether or not a tenant can afford the unit they live in. Policy implication, raise minimum wage. Addressing all the other factors won't be as significant as just basically raising income for people living in affordable housing. Free market rent, how much the unit costs, also plays an understandably important role. Cap rent prices, again, this is pretty straightforward, pretty standard. These ones get a little bit more exciting. We can see that the current market value of the unit is a really big predictor of how affordable it is, and regulating the value of affordable housing units could get a little bit tricky. Value isn't necessarily the same as rent, and so the implications socially of limiting the type of apartment complex, for example, or house that somebody could live in gets tricky. So this is why we need to study this variable further. Number of units, also surprising that the size of the apartment complex is important in understanding how affordable the apartment complex is. Again, regulating the number of units a building has is tricky, and I don't know how easy it would be to create policy like that, but it's definitely something we need to consider. Per number of people in the household. This is pretty easy to create policy around. We can just give out higher subsidies based on the number of dependents. I think we're really seeing a huge impact of the number of people who live in a unit and how affordable it is. Own rents. If the tenant owns or if they rent, plays into how affordable the unit is. And keep in mind, mortgage costs are all accounted for, so that's not really what's going on here. Rent-to-own models should be considered for people living in affordable housing units. Thank you.